seconds, maybe 45 seconds, we'll get going. But thank you all for joining us. We're very excited for today. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. It's filling up. I love to see it. Okay. Yeah. Apologies. All righty. All right. Yeah. It's still filling up. Okay. With that, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We're so excited to have you. We are on our first Save70.org virtual community event, and we have got a great panel lined up for you. We'll do some introductions here. Today, we're going to be talking about a few things. I'll go over quickly the agenda. We're going to get an introduction and find out what happened last week. As we all know, there was a major announcement from the FDA and HHS. So we're going to hear from leaders from HART as well as Seven Hope Alliance. Then we're going to hear from a law enforcement professional on what the law enforcement side of things are seeing. Here's some science and safety from our resident scientific advisor, Dr. Ross, as well as our community engagement leaders, who are going to go through what you can do as a leader in this fight back. And then we're going to take your questions. So throughout the presentation, please drop your questions in the Q&A. We're going to try to get to as many of them as possible. We know there's a very passionate group on here, but please drop your questions in and I'll try to get to those at the end. And with that, I would love to introduce Mr. Jeff Smith, the National Policy Director for the HART, also known as the Holistic Alternative Recovery Trust, and Jackie Subeck, the founder of Seven Hope Alliance. You guys take it over. Why don't we start with you, Jeff? Would you give us a little background on yourself and HART?
Sure. Thanks so much, Kyle, for the introduction, and thanks for everything you've done to set up this event. And welcome everybody who's out there in the crowd. So I'm HART's National Policy Director. Let me explain a little bit about HART. HART is the Holistic Alternative Recovery Trust, and we do a lot of things. First and primarily, we work in state capitals all over the country to help educate legislators about what 7-OH is. We talk about the science behind it. We talk about the national data related to 7-OH, information that's, I think, critical to understand benefits that it is providing people in their daily lives. We get consumer testimonials talking about the way that it helps people with a variety of things, from opioid withdrawal to easing, helping people with their daily aches and pains, and just managing a variety of issues. We talk to legislators and policymakers about the current political dynamics that help explain why we're getting attacked in the way that we are. We provide legal counsel and political counsel to help our members navigate a quickly changing policy terrain in state capitals all over the country. And we work in collaboration with Jackie and Dr. Ross and others at Seven Hope Alliance in helping build a national coalition to support access to 7-OH.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Jackie?
Thank you. Thank you, Kyle, for getting this all put together. And thank you, Jeff. So yes, I am Jackie Subeck. I am the founder of Seven Hope Alliance. Seven Hope Alliance is an organization that was founded earlier this year with the intention of providing education on 7-hydroxymetragenine to everybody. That means to the public. That means in conjunction with HART, to lawmakers. We do a tremendous amount of advocacy work. That means to everybody that has anything to do with 7-O in any way, shape, or form. We want to make sure that the information that's getting put out there on 7-O is accurate, is up to date, is factual information, and is backed by science. And that is the second thing that Seven Hope does. We are based in science as well. So we have a number of studies running right now. We have a team of scientists that work together to help us decide which are the most important studies we need to be doing at any given time, how we do those studies, where they happen. And so we rely on our scientists to help us with that. And that is really important because 7-O, as many of you know, has only came onto the market about 2 years ago right now. So it's still kind of early in the entire evolution of 7-O, and we want to make sure that we continue to do the science so we can bring you a greater safety profile every single day than we can provide the day before. So we want science to continue to evolve. The other thing that we like to do is engage with the community, and that's where you guys come in. And so we're so happy that you're all here today to join us. This is really, really powerful. And I just want to thank you all for participating in this and be willing to hear us out and hopefully eventually help us engage in fighting this fight. So with that, I will, who am I turning this over to?
Well, no, I guess I want to ask
Kyle.
either of you. Yeah, I'll kind of lead it here. Jeff or Jackie, can you just give us like a quick what the heck happened last week? What happened with the FDA and HHS? What does it mean for today? And what does, kind of the future look like? Like what's going on?
I'll go ahead and take that one. Thanks, Kyle. So, yeah, so if you know, or perhaps you don't know, about a week ago, the FDA and HHS made an announcement that they were going to recommend that the DEA schedule 7-hydroxymetragenine as a Schedule 1 substance on the under the Controlled Substance Act. That would effectively put 7-0 in the same bucket as very, very strong drugs that are out there, including, I believe, fentanyl. Sadly, cannabis is still in that category. And we do not want that to happen, obviously. So let me explain what actually was transpired. So they made that announcement. They told the DEA, hey, we'd like you to recommend that. I mean, we want to make a recommendation to you that you get this scheduled. Now it's in the hands of the DEA. And the DEA has essentially 3 things that they could do. 1, they could completely ignore it. That would be great. 2, they could do what's called a temporary or emergency scheduling. Those words are synonymous in this case. And that would mean that the DEA is able to move without congressional approval. The DEA is located in the hierarchy of government. They're in the Department of Justice. So essentially, the Attorney General, the Department of Justice, and the DEA could make a decision that they wanted to put 7-0 on the schedule as an emergency or temporary schedule. That then there would be a 30-day period. They would actually publish that notice in the Federal Register, at which time we'd need all of you to get in there and sign all of that. And then they'd hear from the comments, and that comment period could get extended to 45 days. It could get extended to 60, 90 days. There's really not anybody controlling that number except the DEA. So if they went down that path and it was successful, that would put 7-0 on a 2-year temporary schedule, during which time we could then fight that and provide new information and so forth. We obviously don't want to go there. The other thing that the DEA could do is not temporarily schedule it. They could take it and put it into a regular scheduling process. If they want to go to the regular scheduling process right away, that's going to take 6 months, 9 months, years. Some of them, sometimes it takes even multiple years for that to even happen. And they have an 8-factor, which I'm sure we'll hear more about on this call. They have an 8-factor analysis, a set of criteria that has to be met in order for them to achieve a final scheduling. And so we, of course, believe and are doing lots of work on that 8-factor, showing that there's just no validity in it. And we're working very hard. We've got a lot of hands involved in this right now. And I'm pretty sure Dr. Ross is going to talk more about that. So I won't belabor that. But that's basically what happened and where we are today.
I appreciate it. Jeff, anything to add to that of what we saw last week before we get into kind of 3 messages we want people to understand?
I think Jackie did a fantastic job. The only thing that I could add is that the person who the other side and the person who, HHS and the FDA trotted out to testify to the so-called danger of 7-OH was a woman who's been paid by the kratom industry for years and literally admitted on stage with the cabinet secretary right there that she'd never used 7-OH and didn't even know anyone who had, but was relying on third-hand gossip from a vape store clerk who told her that other people had challenges with it. So we are the organization that really wants to focus on science, and you'll hear more from Dr. Ross later and a little bit from me about that. And I think that really sharply contrasts with the total lack of science in the press conference that we saw last week that Jackie referenced.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So the next thing we wanted to talk to you guys about was 3 messages that really, we hope that everyone takes away from this call, and I'm sharing these on the screen here. We're going to put these up later. There's three things that are really happening here that we want you to go out and share with the world. And I'm hoping that Jeff, Jackie, could you guys go through these a little bit to explain what our rationale is here?
We can, yeah. I'll take the first one, and then Jackie and I can take turns if that's okay, Jackie. So first of all, the science does not support a ban. Dr. Ross is going to go into a little more detail later and talk about some of the emerging science, and I'll just tell you that the FDA and the CDC, if you look at their own data on this, it doesn't support a ban. There are no deaths in the FDA's adverse event database that are linked solely to people who have used 7-OH alone. There's no apparent public health emergency. There's no signal that emergency rooms are being deluged with 7-OH users. You don't read about it or see it on the nightly news every night, people struggling with it. None of the traditional public health signal that you would see if a dangerous new substance were on the streets have happened. So, 20 years ago, when fentanyl, hit the streets, you saw hundreds of people dying in short order. You're not seeing anything like that, and the FDA's own data corroborates that. Um, Almost all the adverse events that have been recorded involve polydrug use, where individuals are using other things, not usually harder drugs than 7-OH. And so I think it's important to recognize that.
Mhm.
Um, Third, the broad data out there that you're seeing about overdose deaths. I'm not going to I'm not going to make a causal claim here, but there's a really interesting correlation that you'd find. You see fatal opioid overdose deaths rising for 25 years straight from 1998 to 2023. And then the first year that 7-OH becomes widely available, 2024, you see those fatal overdose deaths go down nearly 27%, according to the CDC. And you see those deaths go down fastest in some of the states that had the highest per capita consumption of 7-OH, like West Virginia, Virginia, and Florida, whereas the fatal overdose deaths continued to rise in states like Utah that totally banned 7-OH. So again, can't draw a causal connection yet. It's going to take years to do that, but we think those correlations are pretty interesting data about the potential promise of 7-OH as opposed to any problematic issues. And finally, before I let Jackie do number two, I just want to give a little preview of some of the academic studies that are already out there, such as a study by researchers from Columbia and the University of Florida that corroborate previous studies showing a very limited respiratory depressant effect. That means you're not going to stop breathing from using this. So you shouldn't fear that because the studies show it's not going to happen. Other studies, such as the study published in the Journal of Pharmacology and Experimental Therapeutics, March 2021, by Samuel Obeng, shows that there is no lethal dose of 7-OH. Another study by Andrew Krugel and colleagues in the American Chemical Society Central Science, June 2019, shows that 7-OH has a lower risk of side effects than other opioids, heroin and others. So there are a whole litany of studies. Another one in the Journal of Drug and Alcohol Dependence, August 2020, shows 7-OH has a lower potential for abuse compared to traditional opioids. So we think that the science is very much in our favor here and does not support a ban, which is why you didn't hear any science or data at the FDA press conference last week. Jackie?
Yeah, that is a very, very good point. If you were to go back and watch the press conference, you will notice there is not a whole lot of science there. And I think that's really important to pay attention to here. So the second issue that we really want to focus on is the people. And we understand that, look, we have hundreds and hundreds, maybe we're getting towards thousands. It's hard to keep track of them all, of testimonials from people like yourself, people who are using 7-0, and they are telling us what they're experiencing, what is happening, how their lives have changed. We hear everything from if they ban 7-0, I will probably go back to fentanyl and I'll probably die. If they ban 7-0, my alcohol situation is going to come back and that's not going to be good. We hear that over and over and over again. We also hear, I have cancer or I had cancer and I took 7-0 and it helped manage my day. Or I have various, I don't even want to go into them because I know Dr. Ross is going to talk about them, but things like fibromyalgia, things like Crohn's disease, things like PTSD, these are real ailments that people deal with every single day. And we have so many testimonials from people telling us how the 7-0, a ban on 7-0 would really, really hurt their lives. And that is so important to us because we realize that 7-0 is a harm reduction tool. It is something that is being used by people for a whole variety of reasons. Some people who are recovering from opioid addictions, they have moved over to 7-0 and they're having a better experience. And they tell us this every single day. People who are living with chronic pain, which sadly so many people are living with chronic pain, they are using 7-0 and they are telling us that they are able to have lives again. They are able to be happy, to play with their kids and go to work. Really simple things that they were not able to do before they found 7-0. Overall, we just don't want people to be hurt. We realize that 7-0 is actually saving lives because people are telling us that it is. And this would be the absolute worst thing to happen for 7-0 to get banned. So we also don't want to drive people back to the illicit market because we know, and we'll hear from Terry Blevins a little bit on this, but we know that bans don't work. Prohibitions don't work. They inevitably lead to an illicit market and unregulated, untested products that are out there. And we want to avoid that at all costs as well. So when it comes down to people being hurt, that's probably at the very top of our list because we certainly don't want people to be hurt by this. Jeff, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. And then finally, I think a third key message that we want to get across is that this is really corporate greed disguised as regulation. Corporations that are trying to gin up a so-called public health crisis around this because they've lost market share. Legacy kratom manufacturers over the last nearly 2 years have hemorrhaged market share as a lot of consumers have chosen what they perceive to be a more effective or safer for them alternative. And because they have made those choices, that has consequences for how much money people make. And what you've seen over the last year as the legacy kratom manufacturers, members of the Global Kratom Coalition, and some in the American Kratom Association have responded to that by saying, well, let's just try to ban it because we can't compete with it. And that's really unfortunate. It's had some really unfortunate results in states like Connecticut and Louisiana, where the AKA and GKC have spent all of their time and resources and energy telling lawmakers how horrible and sinister and evil 7-OH is. And then lawmakers kind of looked into it and saw, well, hey, if you look at the FDA's own database, there are 200 plus deaths resulting from traditional kratom use and only a couple deaths that where people use 7-OH. And so there's like 100 times more deaths from your thing. Well, let's just ban all of it and have a universal ban on all kratom and 7-OH. That's what's happened in those states as a result of their efforts boomeranging back and hurting them. And so we don't want that to happen. We're not trying to cast aspersions on anyone else. We wish we could work together on behalf of medical freedom for everybody to take the substances that are helping them in their daily lives. And unfortunately, that's not where we are because of the greed of the other side. You're not hearing public health authorities from states or cities begging for this. You're not seeing coalitions of emergency room physicians begging for this. You're not even seeing a broad spectrum of scientists. You're seeing one or two scientists that have been funded by the opposition who are the only scientists calling for this. And you're seeing, corporate interests on the other side instead of the kind of scientists and public health authorities that we ought to be trusting. So, Jackie, anything to add there?
Yeah, I do want to add one thing. That was great. And I really want to add one piece to this, which is the messaging from the kratom industry has been people are dying, emergency rooms are filling up, deaths are up. And we can look at that very same data and see that not only are deaths up, they're down. So in the last 2 years, when 7.0 has been on the market, metragenine, which is kratom, metragenine deaths actually went down. If it was true and people were dying and the emergency rooms were full, then the numbers would have gone up. And instead, they went down by 55%. So I think it's important for everybody on this call to understand that there's a lot of misinformation out there. It gets spread very quickly, right? Through social media, through reports that look official, but you got to question these things. And I think that everybody on this call is probably here because they want to learn. And we really appreciate that, because this is not the crisis that we're hearing about is not actually there.
No,
And
I appreciate
just to put a quick bow on what Jackie said, there's only two possible scenarios based on the other side's argument. The first is that 7-OH is killing people. If that were the case, you would see in the FDA database that people have 7-OH in their system. You're not seeing that. Okay? Their retort is, well, it's killing people, but it's being disguised as mitragynine when people, are in autopsies. But if that were the case, as Jackie noted, you would see a spike in deaths from mitragynine, and you haven't. You've seen this huge decline. So either way that you slice their argument, it doesn't hold water based on which is what we are driven by.
I appreciate that. Well, we want to move it forward and get some insight from the ground here. So I'm very excited to introduce 7Hope's law enforcement advisor, Mr. Terry. I always screw this up. Terry Blevins. Blevins, I'm sorry. Mr. Terry, if you'd give us a rundown of what you're seeing from your side, from the law enforcement side.
No worries. Thank you, Kyle. Well, I'm honored to be here, and I just want to welcome everyone and thank you all for participating. This is a really important effort. There are so many people that are being helped by 7-OH right now, and what's happening, I think, is this move to schedule is really tragic. I spent most of my law enforcement career, local and federal law enforcement officer, fighting on the wrong side of the war on drugs, being brainwashed into thinking that the war on drugs was good and that prohibition was good. And I was lucky enough to be exposed to some law enforcement officers who knew better, and they educated me. And then I really started researching and educating myself and finding that the war on drugs and prohibition really has done much more harm than it has good. And banning substances like 7-OH doesn't work. It creates more problems for law enforcement. And law enforcement right now, we have a disconnect with the communities that we serve. And the last thing that we need is something else that that we have to enforce, that we're required to enforce, that is going to make that divide even larger. We're just not seeing problems in the community with 7-OH. We are not seeing clusters of overdoses or street issues. It's not being used as a party drug. We're law enforcement officers. We are supporting some regulation of both metragenine and 7-hydroxy. It's important that we have safety controls for minors, age gating for people under the age of 21, that we have some regulation regarding advertising and not packaging things in a way that would make it attractive to young people. But we're just not seeing problems with this substance, with this product in law enforcement. It's not creating issues for us. And we know that, with marijuana, one of the issues that we had was that once we made it illegal, it actually started creating more violence. It drove people into the into the illicit market, underground market, and that fosters people to come into the market as sellers and dealers that use violence, and we don't want to see that happen with 7-OH. One of the things that I was really impressed with is that we're seeing a drop in opiate-related deaths in areas where 7-OH use has increased, and that's really promising. I personally use 7-OH, and before I started using it, I came back from Iraq with a severe cervical injury, and I ended up getting addicted to opiates and had to get off of those. And so consequently, since then, I've had to be really careful about what I take. And I deal with pain every day because of the injuries that I sustained in law enforcement and overseas. And I was very lucky to be able to find 7-OH, and it has helped me greatly. And I recently had a really painful root canal, and I was just shocked at how well the doctor tried to offer me opiates, and I said, no, I can't do that, unfortunately, doc. So, but the 7-OH really helped me get through that and helped me sleep and afterwards, and it was really a lifesaver. So I think it's really important that everybody understand that there's no science there yet. If we schedule it, we're not going to be able to do the research that we need to do to make sure that we can help people. It's important that we have more tools to fight the opiate crisis. And fortunately, I see some real hope that 7-OH might be able to do that. So thank you all for being part of this call. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to address those. And back to you, Kyle. Thank you for having this event.
Yeah, well, we really appreciate you sharing your story and that insight of what you and law enforcement are seeing. It's extremely important. And so we kind of talked about those three major takeaways, right? And how important it is. We've got a very lively question and answer already going on. We expected that. Please put your questions in there. But so many of them are about what we can do to control the narrative and what we can do to get out there. And that's why we really want to own these three points, right? And so to bring it back to that, I'm going to ask Dr. Ross to come in to talk us through kind of those first 2 points, the science, the safety, and how the evidence does not support a ban. Dr. Ross?
Well, thank you, Kyle. First off, I want to thank everyone. It's been such an honor to be able to fight for medical freedom and defend the rights of 7-O consumers. I'm one of you. I have been using Kratom since 2015, and I've worked with it with chronic pain patients and people in recovery for over a decade. I wrote a book called Kratom is Medicine in 2021, trying to educate doctors and wellness professionals about this. And now I use 7-O. So it's really been a passion of mine to protect natural medicine. And guess what? 7-O is natural medicine. It's not a synthetic opioid. It is plant-derived medicine. So with that, I'm going to dive into a little bit about what the FDA got wrong here and how we can use that science to fight back. So first off, when the FDA released their report and all these like public slides, and they even sent a letter to every single doctor. Yes, your doctor didn't even know what kratom was, but now they think 7-O is some kind of deadly poison that you shouldn't be using. But here's some, OxyContin for you, right? There's a lot of misinformation that was in these documents. So let's go through some of that. First off, you may have heard, repeated that 7-O is a full opioid agonist. It's super potent. It will get you addicted. It's just like fentanyl. It's gas station heroin. That's simply not right. In fact, there are 4 studies showing that it is a partial mu opioid agonist. And in fact, the scientific consensus is that it is a G protein biased partial mu opioid agonist. It is not a full opioid agonist. There are no papers definitively showing it. And secondly, the 7-O doesn't somehow change in chemical structure or activity just because it's produced in a tablet. 7-O is produced in your body, when you take kratom, about 24% of that mitragynine is converted as a metabolite through your liver and also your gut. And it turns into 7-O. That's chemically exactly the same as the 7-O that you're going to be taking in a 7-O product. So kratom users are exposed to 7-O, and so are 7-O consumers. One is not, hey, the 7-O that is a metabolite is somehow a different, has a different activity than the 7-O that you're taking in a 7-O product. So I just want to put it out there because that is a huge misconception. That's something that is being pushed on everyone by the AKA as well as the FDA now, and it's just not true. I could show you, thousands of papers that again keep saying that isn't partial mu opioid agonist. We also have assets and info sheets at 7 Hope Alliance, confirming that. And so, if you want to talk science, you want to fight back, we have some of these things that you could share with people. Secondly, there's no known lethal dose of 7-O in mice. Of course, we haven't confirmed this in humans because, we don't want to try to kill humans. That's not a good study right there. But in rodents, they've done it, and they have not been able to kill the mice when they give them an oral solution of 7-O. And so that's really important because a lot of other drugs, including full opioid agonists like fentanyl, like morphine, et cetera, they all have lethal doses. And that's why you can overdose on these different drugs. They activate the beta-arrestin pathway, and you have respiratory depression, and increasing doses cause basically you not to be able to breathe and other things, obviously seizures and things like that. But, ultimately, they cause you to die. Now with 7-O, because it's a partial mu opioid agonist, it's basically binding to this receptor and it's not activating it fully. So think about it as like a light bulb, right? So 7-O will bind to that opioid receptor, and it is sort of like a dim light bulb. But something like fentanyl or heroin will turn on that light bulb fully, nice and bright. And that's like the easiest way to think about this, right? It's like when you talk about science, it can get very complex for people. It's like, let's break this down. Now, it is potent, which means that mitragynine, which is also a partial mu opioid agonist, it doesn't really bind that well to the opioid receptors. In fact, it's actually a prodrug for 7-O. So all the pain relieving properties of kratom that a lot of people use it for. Of course, there's other, reasons why people take kratom, like, energy and things like that. But for the pain relief, you actually have to metabolize that mitragynine, turn it into 7-O, that binds to the receptors and provides a little bit more pain relief because, again, it is more potent. It's actually sticking to those receptors. And so that's why it works. They're attacking us based on, oh my goodness, it's potent. It's more potent than mitragynine. But in fact, that's how it works. And that's why people are taking it. People aren't taking it, because it's more addictive or something like that. They're taking it because it's providing more pain relief. And again, because it's a partial mu opioid agonist, it actually works more like buprenorphine, which is part of Suboxone, which is a treatment for opioid abuse. And so it's as potent sort of as buprenorphine, but again, because it's a partial agonist, just like buprenorphine, it's safe. It's not going to cause massive respiratory depression. Of course, if you take really, really high doses of anything, you can always overcome some of these, the pharmacology behind it. But at the doses that people are taking this, it's not going to cause respiratory depression. Even at higher doses, it actually causes dysphoria instead of euphoria. So again, people aren't going to abuse this because they're going to start feeling nauseous and not well. And that's the same thing we see with kratom doses, right? Some people feel, nausea starting at really high doses after 10 grams, but we all know that a lot of people become tolerant to kratom and they start taking higher and higher doses despite the fact that they're throwing up or feeling bad or have, liver issues and things like that. And that's actually a cardinal sign of dependence and addiction. And we see that in kratom users. Over 30% of kratom users, between 30 and 50% even is the estimate, actually may have signs of kratom use disorder, which is, again, dependence and taking things, despite you wanting to, not being able to afford it, etc. I'm not going to say that 7-O is without any physical dependence issues. You can be physically dependent on it, but for chronic pain patients that may not have a choice and need to deal and with with all the things in life, go to work, take care of the kids, clean your house, right? You're going to be dependent on something. And so let's be dependent on something that is safe and not going to have an overdose profile, right? Rather than taking, something that, maybe from the illicit market because your doctors have cut you off from chronic pain meds, right? And you're taking something that, might have been cut with more fentanyl than you thought or something like that. We don't want chronic pain patients getting sick. We don't want them overdosing. 7.0, it provides a consistent experience with, again, there are bad actors out there, but like there are a lot of good companies that provide those third party lab test results that you can trust, that are always going to give you a proper product that, again, we don't have FDA trials to confirm the safety, but we're doing our best to, run those studies, confirm that this is safe in humans. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background about safety. First, I'm going to just say, reiterate that the FDA report cherry picks that science and prevents false information and anecdotal data to paint a false narrative of harm. They also paint 7.0 users as young recreational users. And again, that's that same sort of thing like, oh my goodness, we have to keep it away from the kids. Like all the teenagers in high school are abusing 7.0. The data from Monitoring the Future survey shows that teenagers don't really like kratom and they don't really like 7.0. So first off, let's squash that. They do like things like Delta 8 vapes and stuff like that. So, your average high schooler is smoking, cannabis or hemp-based products. They're not out there consuming these 7.0 tablets. So it's not a crisis for the kids. So let's put that to sleep. Now, secondly, let's see. We have data actually from 7.0 consumers. About 483 of them were surveyed online and asked, things like their age and what they're using it for. So the average age of 7.0 consumers is 43, very similar to kratom users. 75% of consumers are using it for chronic pain, so it's not a recreational drug. Then this is the interesting part here because there's been a lot of division between kratom users versus 7.0 users and, trying to pit one against each other. Guess what? We're the same community. So all the division has been manufactured. And here's why. 74% of 7.0 users used kratom before they tried 7.0. And the majority of them, over 80%, continue to use both. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself as a chronic pain patient. Some days my chronic pain is a 10, some days it's an 8. I like to switch between different products based on my different needs. Or if, for example, I have to do something really wild, like, go present at a conference and be on my feet for 14 hours, right? That's going to be very, very painful for me. And I need to function. I can't quit. I can't take the day off. I'm there, right? And so a lot of people say, hey, I'm going to use extra strength kratom today, right? And that's sort of like what a 7.0 is, right? Instead of I'm going to take my kratom dose and instead of taking 5, I'm going to take 20 grams today, right? And like burn your stomach or have all these other issues. Again, remember, there's nausea and other adverse effects of taking high doses of kratom. And so instead, if somebody can just take one little tablet or 2 tablets, right? It's easier on their stomach. They're not going to be nauseous. They're not going to be vomiting. They're not going to have any of these issues. And they're able to do what they need to do and take care of their life. People should have medical freedom to be able to do that. And the data supports this. Now, the FDA will tell you that this isn't safe. First off, there's actually been a study on Maxwell 2021, looked at what was a 1 milligram per kilogram dose in beagle dogs. And that's equivalent to a 38 milligram dose of 7.0 in a 154-pound human. What they found was that there were no serious adverse effects. And so, an average package of 7.0, there's companies that are selling 14 milligram tablets, right? So if you're saying 14, I mean, that's like 3 tablets or something that you can take. And like, we don't have anything to say, hey, this is 100% safe in humans. We need to do the human clinical trials, right? But the kratom industry has existed for about 10, 15 years before doing any of the research that they've most recently published, right? The FDA just did a study of a single ascending dose of a kratom product, this one by Super Speciosa, and they looked at, different doses of kratom and the safety of this, right? Like, They had 10 to 15 years to do the science. Why suddenly do we not have the time to do the science? And I'm going to give you more insight to that FDA study I just told you about that they haven't published yet, but they do have some data that they presented in abstracts and things like that. One, they said that up to 12 grams of kratom powder in 24 capsules was well tolerated, no adverse effects. What does a 12-gram dose of kratom actually amount to in terms of mitragynine and then its metabolite 7-O? Well, 12 grams of kratom amounts to about 192 milligrams of mitragynine, and that is converted into about 46 milligrams of 7-O in the body. And so they're saying that was well tolerated. And so that gives us a little insight into, hey, maybe this could be safe. Now we don't know, the addictive properties of that. The government's actually doing a human abuse trial of kratom and different doses. So that's telling you, one, if they had to do that study, that kratom is addictive. And we know it is, right? And so if you look at the data together, that this might be safe. This isn't killing people. It acts more like Suboxone than heroin. It really doesn't make sense that 7-O is being targeted. The science just doesn't tell that story. What it does tell is that there's some promising things like, hey, 7-O actually may help reduce alcohol intake. There's studies that show that it's not rewarding in different rodent models. So there's a mixed message here that like, hey, there might be some harm, there might not be. Let's explore this. The same story that we're getting from kratom, that yes, there are people abusing it, there's people that are being helped by it. Let's figure this out. But instead of giving us the time to do the science and understand this, they are basically targeting 7-O while leaving the entire kratom industry, basically giving them like the seal of approval. It's a little weird to me, to be honest. And again, I just don't understand how 7-O is unsafe in a tablet form, but safe if it's a metabolite in your body. Secondly, if they're going to make 7-O a Schedule 1 drug, it's almost like they're going to criminalize all kratom users because the 7-O is floating around in your body, right? If you've ever gone into a DUI or something, it's like, hello, they're going to test your blood and it's going to be in there. You now have a Schedule 1 drug in your system. And we've never really had that distinction before where a metabolite that everyone is exposed to is okay, but the other substance isn't. There's a lot of legal issues with the argument that they're making and a lot of scientific issues. And at the end of the day, as a consumer, as somebody that's worked with thousands of chronic pain patients, as somebody that's talked to doctors, somebody who's talked to addiction therapists and heard from them that things like Suboxone or methadone are not working as well as they're telling you for treating addiction. As somebody who had my brother passed away from fentanyl and alcohol in 2009, I can tell you that we need better options for chronic pain patients and for people in recovery. All humans deserve dignity. All humans deserve to live a life the way that they choose. And for me personally, I don't want to live a life bedridden on Tylenol. I have chronic pain, and so many millions of Americans do. And so what we need is a regulatory framework that really understands the risk between all substances under the kratom umbrella, which includes kratom-derived alkaloids, and respects medical freedom, but also acknowledges, hey, maybe we should regulate this more like tobacco or alcohol and not, ask for a pharmaceutical pathway because to be honest, it's going to be really, really hard. Opioids don't get, approved in this day and age. And by the way, CBD doesn't either. CBD oil is still, a substance that's at risk. And the FDA says it's going to make a regulatory framework, but we're all just waiting. Like literally the FDA says CBD is not safe. So, I don't think that they were going to put the seal of approval saying kratom is super safe either. They might just make mitragynine into a scheduled drug, which is something that Dr. McCurdy is actually working on and has stated publicly many times that he's working on it. So I don't want to wait around and wait for the FDA to say, hey, we told you guys we weren't going to take this away, but now we are, why are we fighting each other? We should be supporting the science and supporting safe regulations for everyone. So that's my 2 cents there. I can go on and on and on.
I more than appreciate it. That was incredible. Thank you so much, Dr. Ross, for all of that insight. I can tell you the questions are flying in, and an appreciation for everything you just shared. I know we're running long already, guys, and I know that this is a community event. And so I want to get to the really important part of what can everyone do, which are so many of the questions. Just a few more points, and we're going to introduce your community engagement managers, and then we'll get to your questions. So really quickly, Jeff, I want to just hit that third point really home. Remember, we're doing the 3 key points. We just heard about the 2. Could you share with us kind of that third one, just a little bit of insight into this corporate greed that we're talking about?
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to. Again, kratom giants, the big players in the kratom industry, people like J.W. Ross, who was pictured recently with Bobby Kennedy Jr., are using bad science in many cases that they've funded, and tons of misinformation about 7-OH to try to regain the market share that they've lost over the last 22 months. It's pretty much that simple. They've funded scientists to call 7-OH synthetic when 7-OH is not created in a lab. It is naturally occurring in the kratom plant. And then through the process of manufacturing 7-OH, it is basically the manufacturing process replicates what happens in the body as the liver breaks down the kratom plant into 7-OH. So they are making statements about, as Dr. Ross, I think, articulately rebutted, saying that it's a full agonist when it's not, it's a partial agonist, saying that it's fully synthetic when it's not, using tons of misinformation to try to eliminate market competition by raising this specter of, hey, this is this killer drug, as they, said repeatedly at the press conference. It's not true. And we are just asking the FDA and the DEA to look at data from the FDA and the DEA, their own data, data from the, national, from INDUS, which National Detection and Early Warning System that typically would provide signals, and it is not providing signals that this is a real threat to public health. And so, yes, it is all spearheaded by just a couple huge players within the kratom industry. And we actually know for a fact that a lot of kratom producers and retailers are very much opposed to this effort by AKA and GKC and are really unhappy that their dues are going completely to, against the principles of medical freedom.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you sharing that. And I think that again, we're going to hammer home those 3 because we want everyone on this call to go out, share those 3 points. That is we need to be a unified voice and understand what are we saying here? We're saying this will harm people. We're saying this is an inter-industry fight. And we're saying the science doesn't support a ban. It just is what it is. With that, I am so excited for this next part, what everybody's looking forward to. What can we do? Is this set in stone, or can we fight back? Great news. We can fight back. And with that, I would love to introduce you 2 very special people. We're going to start with our, sorry about that. I got to get my screen back up. First, we're going to start with, and I screwed up my thing, with Wednesday ForestBear. She is our online community expert, and she's going to share with us some of the things we can do online, some of those online communities that are really important that we engage in right now. Wednesday, would you jump into it for us and kind of give us a quick intro and what you're working on?
Hi, Kyle. Thanks. And thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm Wednesday ForestBear. A lot of you know me as Voodoo ForestBear on Reddit, Discord, and other platforms. So what we can kind of do is what a lot of you are doing already. Go to our new website, save7o.org. Okay, on there is our petition. You've already shared it all over the place, and I thank you guys so much for do that, but keep sharing it all over. Make sure that you guys stick to that one petition, that we don't get confused with the other petitions that are going around, or the old petitions that went around for state bans. Now, I worked on the front lines with a lot of different state bans. I came from the kratom industry. We all are the same community. There is no need for us to be fighting back and forth. And we do see that the AKA is trying to break us up. So, you know, what we can really do is, you know, don't stoop to their level. Just keep showing them how strong we are. Send in your testimonials to the websites. I'm going to drop some community links for the Reddits if you're not on there already. And there's a new Discord that we just launched. There's a link on here that is, you can join up. And we're also going to send out tomorrow a news blast with that link to the Discord so you can all join if you don't already have it.
We'll be sending a
So
lot of these links to all of the attendees, just so everyone knows we're going to be sending that over. So thank you for reminding me to say that Wednesday.
yes, yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
We're also going to be working together, Jessica and I. You're going to hear from her next. Her and I are going to be working together on some outreach things with different advocacy people that have helped us a lot with state bans and stuff like that, to be able to get these little groups together and let you all know what you can do next. You know, what's coming next, what is the step that you're hearing, and real-time information that comes as soon as we know it. So yep, I look forward to hearing from you. We can't do this without you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Wednesday. And with that, I'm so excited to introduce this next person. A lot of you haven't necessarily heard from her, but she's been behind the scenes a bit, working with us and helping us. For those who have emailed Seven Hope Alliance or save70.org, a lot of that we're very short staffed, and so we need support. And we've got to introduce Miss Jessica Lawless, who has stepped up to the plate to help us with community engagement. So those two, Wednesday and Jessica, are going to be that person that you can reach out to. How can I get involved? What can I do? When you're reaching out to those emails, they're going to try and stay on them and make sure you're getting the answers. So without further ado, very excited to welcome Jessica.
Awesome. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, everybody. I'm really excited to be a part of this campaign, and I'm really glad that you're all here to get involved as well and to be asking the questions that you're asking. So just to let you know, so I'm also a 7.0 user. I've had Crohn's disease since I was a teenager, and over the decades, I've been very invested in bodily autonomy and medical freedom for how I take care of my chronic illness. And when I found 7.0 at the end of last year, when I had a workers' comp incident that left me barely able to walk and dealing with associated PTSD and pain, I found 7.0, and it really became a part of how I'm now managing my chronic pain, both from my chronic illness as well as recovering from that workers' comp incident. And I was able to, within a few months, actually like walk distances I hadn't walked in 2 years. Like I know the experience. I'm right here with you all. So I want you to know that. And we're here together to make sure that we save this. And so I want to just jump into that. We're just going to take a minute, because what we need to do is always be taking action, right? And so I know a lot of you have signed this petition, but I want to make sure indeed that we all have. We have just over about 10,000 signatures on it today. And over the next 30 to 60 days, we want to be able to get 200,000 signatures. That's like a very concrete number we want to work towards together. So I'm going to put the link directly to the petition right here in the chat right now. And I'm going to ask you, if you haven't signed it, we're just going to pause for 15 seconds. And I want
Everyone
you to
go sign it.
that link, and I want you to sign it now if you have not. Literally, we're just going to be quiet. I'm sorry, we need like a little music for a minute, but
I didn't prep the music. I
I
apologize.
didn't think of it either. But I'm gonna talk maybe a little bit, but we're gonna wait and see, because my goal would be by the end of today, with all of us working together, we're going to see at least 500 more signatures, not just from this group, because there's 100 of us here, a little bit over 100 of us here.
Oh, it just went up 3. So we got 3.
There we go. See, live in action. This is how we're going to do it. The questions of how are we going to do it. One of the reasons why I'm doing it like this right now is that a one-on-one ask can really bump our numbers along with the blasts out on social media or out in all these other ways, these one-on-one asks. So I'm going to have one more ask for us right now, which is to take that link either from your computer or from the chat. And right now, we're going to send it. I want everybody to send it either on a text or a DM on your socials or in an email, whatever way that you communicate it with people, and literally just send it to 3 to 5 people. Just right now, just ask them. And I'm going to give you this little thing right here. And this is what you can write alongside with your message. You can change it if you want to change it. But what I'm putting here is, please click here and sign this petition to ensure access to plant medicine that's an important part of my healthcare and protecting medical freedom. And you can be involved in this, right? You can say thank you can give them a little heart emoji, however you want to do it. Right? But if we want to do that right now, and I am asking you to go ahead and do the one-on-ones. When we get off the call, I want you to take it and put it out on your social media. I want you to go over to save70.org, like we put in there, and sign up to make sure you're getting our information about events that are coming up. Wednesday and I and others on this call are going to host some organizing meetings to help everyone get together and reach out. We want to hear your ideas. There's someone who's already created a great flyer to go put up in smoke shops that has a QR code on it for ways to get involved. So we know that everyone has some really good ideas, and we want to start getting that out there. And that's how we're going to do it. They need to know that we're out here and we have a voice and that we're going to challenge this. So we're going to be working on that together. And like Kyle said, I'll start responding to those emails. You'll start hearing from us, and a few of you in the chat, I let you know you can go ahead and email me and I can help answer some of those more direct questions. So I'm really looking forward to getting to know everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And I will share that we definitely are working quickly to get the save70.org website improved, functional. So of course, shoot your emails over to let us know how you think that we can do that. But currently from save70.org, you links out to the sign the petition, the proper one that's trying to get as many as we can. You can contact Congress via a link that you just plug in your information, and it does send a letter. We triple confirmed it today, didn't we, Jackie? That it does send a letter to your congressman. So you can use that. You can connect with Jessica in email and talk to her about what potentially putting together local events, online events like these. You want to have your own and talk with 12 of you and figure out how to do it. We've got the resources, the Zoom account, whatever you need. Dr. Ross is putting together a school. It's SKOOL. It's not a school, but it's an online community where she's going to have educational resources. There's a forum there where people can chat back and forth and ask questions. That's about to be linked out from save70.org. And then the biggest thing I just wanted to hammer home was speak up and make your voice heard. This is, we've seen attacks like this in the past. We've seen federal government take regulatory action that has been reversed or halted because the people spoke up. And that's the point of this call, is to get out there and come together, create a community, know that we have momentum. We understand that it's very frustrating and scary, but we're all in this together. And that's the point of this call. And that's the point of save70.org. So I wanted to kind of close out the call with that positive feeling. With that, we are going to open up the call to some questions. And as this industry, anyone who's in it knows it can be a very lively one. But with that, I'm really going to open it up to everybody. I'm going to stop sharing there. I'm going to open it up to everybody. I'm going to put us in gallery view if possible. I don't know how to do that. Gallery view. So that we can all kind of answer together. Really, anyone who wants to jump in. We've seen a lot of questions, or a lot of people saying thank you, but I think the biggest question that's coming across here is, what can we do specifically besides speaking out? What are the next steps with the DEA? This one, for instance, is, you might have addressed this already, but where is the DEA pulling this information? What happens? Where does it get this decision? And what avenue can we take to give them the proper information? Maybe Jeff, Jackie, or really whoever wants to jump in.
Yeah, I can take that one. So, look, I'm seeing a lot of questions about this, and so at the moment, the DEA, they received the recommendation, but that's as far as it's gone at this moment. So they're kind of quiet. We have obviously people that work in the federal, in federal for us. So we've got eyes and ears up there, and we know what's going on as it happens. But right now they're quiet and likely deciding whether or not they're going to begin the temporary emergency process, or if they're going to, as I said earlier, put it through a regular scheduling process, which could take many months, sometimes years, or the best chance is they decide that it's just not for them and it doesn't meet the 8-factor criteria that they need, and they decide that they can't do it, which ultimately is what happened in 2016. And when Kratom was in the same exact situation. So, I think with what everybody's saying here, with Kyle saying, Jessica and Wednesday, and getting involved is really going to be important. People are asking, what can I do? How do I know that what's the DEA is going to do? Well, we're going to keep you you informed. And if there's another big announcement to make, we're going to probably do another one of these calls and let you know and engage you at that moment. Because if the DEA was to move to the temporary schedule and they basically put a public notice out on the Federal Register, that is when the 30-day time clock starts, and that is when every single person is going to need to get in there and write. We'll have to see what we write, and we'll let you know at that time. So that's about as much information as we have right now on that particular topic.
And to your point, I think that you mentioned in there, but it's a public comment period. That's what happens. And that's when our voices really have to be heard. And I want you to look to save70.org for some of that combined messaging, so that, that old rule of thumb that people have to hear something 7 times for it to make sense applies here, right? Our lawmakers, our regulators need to hear the same thing over and over again. I'm hearing that, that the science doesn't back this. I'm hearing that people could be harmed. What's going on? We need that to resonate. And which is why we've picked these three key messages to really get out there. But thank you so much. Anyone have anything to add to that?
Yeah, just briefly. So in a past life, I was a public policy professor, and so I didn't research real science. I researched political science. But one thing that I did research was the effect of constituent contact on policymaking. And what I found was that more impactful than the amount of money given, more impactful than the nature of press coverage, the most impactful thing in determining whether or not legislation would pass or fail were the number of constituent contacts into a legislator's office. So I encourage you to not think that it'll just be one voice in the wilderness, but to band together with friends or relatives or other people that you may see at the store where you purchase your 70H, to say, hey, let's all get together, and 10 of us all reach out to our congressman or our congresswoman, because that kind of collective action, one person at a time, one neighborhood at a time, one community at a time, is really what mobilizes and empowers a member of Congress to say, I'm going to sign this petition. I'm going to make a call over to FDA and tell them that there's a lot of people that I represent that seem to be benefiting from this, and this is way too premature to ban it with the promise that it appears to be showing. So please take seriously the notion that you can make a real difference.
I think that's really great. And I will add this, that yes, we have that tool on save70.org, but nothing hurts to just write your own and mail it. You know what I mean? Make a phone call. These are things, and we're working on pulling together all of those contacts and who you should be calling. But really, you can Google who your representative is and ask them, take the language that we have on save70.org and send them an email yourself. There's multiple paths to make your voice heard. We're also going to be putting together, again, in-person events, things like that. But thank you, Jeff, for that. Is we need this to be seen by the legislators.
And I just wanted to add here too, we do need science to fight ban and fight public opinion and really show that this is safe. So, we are going to be reaching out to the 7.0 community for surveys and things like that. And we would love for you to participate, because they need to know, who the real 7.0 users are and how this will hurt them. And so we'll be rolling some of that out very soon.
Great. Perfect. So again, I'm going to ask this because we've got some people in the audience and there's a few questions to it. And I think that we should address this, especially with having HART and 7Hope in the room. Is there anything that you guys believe in as organization in terms of cleaning up the industry or paying attention to the bad actors who might be pushing limits or safety regulations, things like that? Can we go on record at this moment to hear from both of you of, do we need to react to ban them all because that's just the way it is, or is there a way to do this right?
I mean, speaking for HART, there's absolutely a way to do this right. We don't want the necessity of pointing out that Kratom has certainly had its issues and legacy kratom manufacturers should answer for some of the products that are causing issues. But we don't want to get everything banned. We think that everybody can coexist and help consumers have a broad array of choices to use whatever is helping them. And in that vein, unlike a lot of emerging industries, we are craving and embracing regulation. We want third-party testing and requirements of good manufacturing processes so that our products can't be adulterated. We want age restrictions and age gating in stores so minors can't have access to 7-OH products. And further, we want labeling restrictions so that the products aren't targeted to be alluring to minors. We want all of these things as part of a stringent regulatory framework, but one that continues to provide access and choices for consumers who need it.
And I'll just add, and I would like to add to that, that we, to echo what Dr. Ross said earlier, we know there are bad actors out there. It happens when you have an unregulated market. That's part of the unregulated market. But we also believe that there is room for both products. There's room for the kratom products, there's room for the 7-O products, and we want to be able to create an environment where both of those things can live together, both of those things are regulated, and by virtue of having regulations, which also would include testing regulations for the quality of the product itself, by virtue of having those regulations, regulation eventually forces people into compliance. It forces businesses to change their practices if they want to maintain a presence in a regulated market. So if you have a bad actor who currently has either a bad name or a bad, or they're marketing to children, or maybe the quality of their product is questionable, we believe that regulation is the answer to that, because then that business has a chance to clean their act up and join the regulated market, or they can just leave, right? Because at that point, it's going to be one or the other. So I just really, I'm glad you asked this question, Kyle, because I think it's a really, really important one for everybody to understand.
I do too. And I've got another one that you guys are doing a great job of answering them in the writing. So thank you to the panel. But I will ask this one because Dr. Ross said it well. Kratom users are 7-O users, 7-O users are Kratom users. And I want to ask, and so do a bunch of people according to this, does this pose a possible risk to Kratom leaf products? Is there issues there that maybe we should all be working together instead of not, I guess is my question, based off of theirs. I don't know who wants to take it, but it's multiple people have asked, well, what, is there risk? Does this risk Kratom leaf? What if I can't get Kratom leaf now too? I think it's a fair question.
I think it's a good question too. And frankly, what happened in Connecticut and Louisiana is horrible. And it happened because the AKA and the GKC spent all their time trashing us and caused legislators to look under the hood and say, oh, well, there were a couple deaths associated with 7-OH, but there were like 100 times as many deaths associated with traditional kratom. Well, pox on all their houses, we're banning all of it. That wasn't started by us. And in fact, we made a really strong appeal a couple weeks ago at Champs to say, let's just all work together and agree on and compromise on dosage limits. And let's sit down at the table and figure out how we can work together to agree on a comprehensive regulatory framework that'll work for everybody. And unfortunately, the other side just seems to have gone in the opposite direction and stomped on these efforts to extend an olive. So is it going to result in a kratom ban? We certainly hope not, but that's where it's gone in a couple states. And that's why we need more voices in the kratom community to go to the AKA and GKC and say, you better stop this before what happened in those states happens all over the country.
Point, Jeff. I answered this briefly in the question and answer section, but as a former federal law enforcement officer, I can tell you that it's highly likely that the entire kratom industry will be affected by the attention that they are putting on 7-OH. I don't know. If you look at the history of drugs that have been scheduled, I don't know how they can look at that and think that they won't be affecting themselves as well. it seems really illogical to me what they're doing, and the fact that they're ignoring that possibility. So that's a great question.
And I can share that I get the the Google alerts from the news. There's been some interesting pieces in the past couple of days of attacks on kratom, not on 7.0, on kratom, on extracts, etc. And I just find it interesting, and that's why I wanted to pose the question. We are running short on time. Panel, have you guys looked at other questions here? There's a couple on, how many representatives do we have on board? I don't think we're ready to answer that question quite yet. I don't know if you want to take that, Jeff.
Yeah, we are working on that, but we're literally 1 week after the FDA press conference, and so we've already made appointments with several members of Congress to really try to educate them and help them. A lot of them are not yet delineating between kratom and 708. So we have a lot of education work to do. We've been focused on state capitals where we've been besieged over the last several months, and we have tried to get meetings with the FDA over the last several months, and unfortunately, we're not able to do so. So we're a little bit behind the 8 ball. We're not gonna sugarcoat it, but we already have several meetings with members of Congress scheduled. We agree with the sentiment of the question that it was a critical component of the 2016 effort to reverse the sort of the move towards a kratom ban. And if you can be helpful in arranging a meeting like that, if you have a strong relationship with a member of Congress, or if you just are a regular constituent, please make your voice heard or reach out to one of us to let us know that you can be helpful in that regard. Jeff@heartsupporter.com is my email.
I love that. Or shoot it to info@save70.org and we'll get you to the right place. I think you want to go ahead, Jackie? I saw you.
Well, I did just want to touch on one question in here, because it is really a good question, and that is basically, as we know that 7.0 and kratom are sold at smoke shops, in head shops, gas stations, and how does that impact the perception of 7.0 in the community? And I think that's a very good question. And it actually comes right back to everything we've been talking about, which is responsible use and reasonable regulation. Because if we can get regulation in place and have all the things we've discussed, and doses and milligram caps and labeling and child safety protections, etc., then we will have an opportunity to move those products out of the smoke shops, away from the gas stations, and into other retail locations that don't come with the same, perspective or perception, rather.
I'm going to do one more plug. As Jackie is saying that, and all the things that we're saying, the perception is really also part of where we need everyone to be involved. I know that sometimes it feels like signing petitions don't do anything. I've spent 10 years working in the labor movement and doing a whole bunch of community organizing, and it's a numbers game and it moves them. And if they see us, and literally if they see us, the way I told my story, the way you all are telling your stories when we're asking for them on the video and on the post, like, they really need to see us, and they need to see who we are and help change that perception, right? And not, we're everyone. So there isn't, we're some people and we're not other people, we're everyone. And so being able to speak to that and being able to fight for this, it really can sometimes be as simple as making sure you sign the petition and making sure you speak up. So we need you, we'll be in touch, and we need you to be in touch with us as well.
I appreciate that. And I want to chime into that as well, Jessica, that we're a small team and we have not been perfect, and we're getting off the ground. And I understand that there's some frustrations of maybe I didn't talk to the right person or where I fit into this. We know there's other organizations that have the same goals as us out there. We want to work with you. That's just plain and simple. I'm putting it out there. We want to work with you. We can put personalities aside. We can put the past aside. We'll work with the AKA. But the point is that we want to work with you and get on the same page of messaging, petitions, emailing. For instance, there's a campaign going on where they've asked people to hold up a sign that says, save 7.0 and tell their story. I love it. It's fantastic. We're going to ask for the same thing. We're going to put up an upload to try and get videos of that. We're trying to work with digital marketing experts to go, okay, how do we share these broader, right? But please understand that this is not a self-driven, money greedy thing. This is about saving an industry and reducing harm for people that will be harmed if it's banned. And those three things are true, and we believe them. And so we'll get back to you. We're trying. And I share that with you because I'm watching the emails and I'm trying to communicate. There's just a lot going on. So, but to Jessica's point, we're building up a coalition here, and coalitions are not always perfect marriages, but they're marriages, and we've got to stick in it together. So any other word from anyone on the panel, please jump in. Really, really great call, especially for our first one. Anyone else have anything they want to close this out with?
I just want to jump in real fast. There's something that we haven't really talked about, and it's one thing that I get asked on Reddit and Discord all the time. It's how can I see this news story popping up and it's being shared everywhere? What can I do to tell them, that's not correct? Well, what you can do is on most journalists' story that has their email either at the bottom or some way you can reach out to them. Now, something we did in Louisiana and some other states that we worked on is we had people that just sent in their testimonials to those journalists as well and said, this is why I think that maybe, you should think a little bit different about this. And it's, we've gotten a lot of good feedback, and journalists have come back to us and said, oh, hey, I'd really like to learn more about that. Can you tell me more? Or is there a place I can go to learn more? Because I'm just, printing out what, I've heard and what's going on. So that's another thing that we can all do, for outreach, and all sticking together.
No, it's an interesting point, and we've done a lot of trying to speak to the press, and they're confused, and they hear big scary headlines, and they go, okay, well, that must be the headline, and then trying to convince them to get the other side it's been difficult. And so to hear from the real voices, I think that's a very powerful thing. So thank you, Wednesday. Anything else? No, awesome. Well, again, thank you to everyone who's joined us today. We had a great audience. We're going to share this. Please share it we'll post it. Please share it. A lot of great information. We look forward to working with each and every one of you to protect 7.0. So save70.org, and thank you to all of our panelists. All right. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.